Surface. The surface of the Great Tomb in Nazarick is a quiet graveyard masking the true fortress below. The Great Tomb stretches out 200 meters wide on all sides, wrapped in 6-meter tall walls that keep the place sealed off except for its front and back gates. Scattered around its graveyard are statues of goddesses and angels, looking like they could pass for art pieces if they weren't standing guard over a field of randomly placed tombstones. At the four corners sit mausoleums, each marking a direction, while the biggest one stands proudly at the center, serving as the main gateway into Nazarick itself. Right around the central tomb, which is the highest teleport point accessible with a ring of Ain's own Gon, 8 massive figures stand tall at 10 meters each, clad in armor, silently watching over the entrance. When Nazarick got dropped into the New World, Mare Bellafiore, one of the floor guardians, wasted no time using his magic to hide the walls and blend the place into the surroundings to keep it off the radar. Tucked within the grounds is the log cabin, a secondary entrance to Nazarick and a checkpoint for visitors, guarded by the Pleiades battle maids. Their main job was to greet Ainz whenever he returned without his ring, making sure everything was in order before he stepped back inside. On top of that, they were tasked with reading the intentions of anyone who showed up uninvited, preparing for whatever trouble might come. If an enemy turned out to be too strong, the Pleiades were under strict orders to let themselves be defeated without putting up a fight, so Nazarick could claim the moral high ground later when dealing with negotiations. And when visitors showed up at the cabin acting all friendly, the maids had one final job: hand out a polite but firm last warning before things turned ugly. Yuri Alpha and CZ-2128 Delta were the ones usually stationed there, handling these duties with quiet efficiency while keeping Nazarick's doorstep secure, no matter who decided to wander too close. First through third floors. The first, second, and third floor of Nazarick are the catacombs, an underground maze crawling with dozens of undead that shuffle around in the darkness. This is the floor where invaders got a brutal taste of Nazarick's hospitality. Shaltir Bloodfallen is in charge of this area as the floor guardian, and she's basically the star of the most messed up floors we got to witness during the invaders of the large tomb arc. This place is crawling with undead creatures that absolutely destroy the invaders, plus it's loaded with enough traps to make even the most paranoid dungeon master jealous, which we got to see play out beautifully in the anime. Now, tucked away on the second floor sits the Grey Vault of Adipocere, which is essentially Shaltir's personal hangout spot, and it's as disturbing as it sounds. This twisted vampire princess has set herself up in this chamber alongside her undead concubines, the vampire brides, because apparently even the undead needs companionship. From this cozy little death palace, Shaltir handles all the surveillance duties for the Great Tomb, keeping tabs on everything under Ainz's orders like some kind of supernatural security system. This chamber itself is decked out with multiple rooms, including a bath area because even vampires need their spa time. But there's this thick, sickeningly sweet fragrance that hangs in the air like invisible poison. While the undead residents are completely immune to this aromatic trap, any living creature that fails to resist its effects get hit with nasty negative status ailments, which is basically the undead equivalent of setting up a bug zapper for humans. These kinds of overwhelming scents that seep directly into your skin are standard operating procedure for undead layers, turning the very air into a weapon. Getting to the Adipocere chamber means crossing a rickety broken down bridge that connects to the entrance door, adding that extra touch of "you're probably going to die" to the whole experience. Once inside, gauzy pink chiffon veils dangle from the ceiling like ghostly curtains, deliberately obscuring vision and making navigation a complete nightmare. One particularly eerie room contains a small white table set for 2 people, complete with porcelain teacups filled with bright red fluid that definitely isn't your average Earl Grey, while the scent of actual tea somehow manages to fill the air in this macabre tea party setup. The web novel describes Shaltir's personal quarters as surprisingly girlish in design, featuring a cute desk and chair combo along with a semi-double bed complete with a canopy, all set against cream-colored wallpaper that creates this bizarre contrast between innocent decoration and the horrifying reality of where you actually are. Her closet is stuffed with Western clothing and gothic attire, which makes perfect sense for a true vampire fashion enthusiast. But the light novel takes things to a whole different level by expanding her wardrobe to include nurse uniforms, maid outfits, bunny girl costumes, sailor uniforms, leotards, school swimwear, gymnast outfits, school blazers, and various ears and tails to complete whatever twisted roleplay scenario she's going for. Every single piece of furniture in Shalltear's burial chamber was personally selected and placed by our creator, Perugino, which explains the disturbingly specific aesthetic choices throughout the space. What Shalltear doesn't know is that there's a secret compartment hidden in the back of one of her closets, stocked with custom swimsuits that Perugino bought specifically for her. Because apparently, even creating an undead vampire doesn't stop someone from being a dedicated collector. But if you thought Shalltear's setup was disturbing, wait until you hear about the Black Capsule, which serves as the resident for the area guardian, Kyohuko, on the second floor, and this place will absolutely ruin your ability to sleep peacefully ever again. This room is completely overrun with cockroaches of every conceivable shape and size, creating a living carpet of insects that crawl over each other in constant writhing motion. The smallest of these cockroaches are roughly the size of a human fingertip, while the largest ones stretch over a meter in length, turning what should be tiny pests into legitimate monsters that could probably eat your pet. This environment poses an immediate and severe threat to any living being, particularly humans, who face both physical and psychological torture from the endless swarm of cockroaches that call this nightmare home. Victims unfortunate enough to end up in this hellscape experience having their internal organs constantly devoured from the inside by cockroaches that have somehow found their way into their bodies, creating a slow, agonizing death that makes traditional torture methods look merciful by comparison. When there aren't any fresh victims available for the cockroaches to feast on, they turn to cannibalism and start eating each other to satisfy their relentless hunger, maintaining the constant cycle of consumption and violence that defines this twisted ecosystem. According to the author Maruyama, the roach pit itself spans an enormous circumference, creating a vast arena of suffering that could accommodate multiple victims simultaneously. During the invasion of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, when 1,500 people descended into the underground levels, dozens of invaders met their end in this specific location through various means of carelessness and poor judgment. Some of these invaders failed to properly calculate the range of their magic spells and ended up accidentally killing dozens of their own closely packed allies, while others simply couldn't handle the psychological trauma of the situation and were forced to log out of the game entirely rather than endure another moment in this insect-infested nightmare. The entire area exists in complete and absolute darkness, with no source of light to illuminate anything, creating an environment where victims can't even see the horrors approaching them until it's far too late to escape. The ceiling itself is completely covered with cockroaches, forming what can only be described as a vast swamp of insects that fills the entire space from floor to ceiling. When victims find themselves trapped in this area, their bodies begin slowly sinking into the sea of cockroaches like quicksand, but instead of sand, it's millions of writhing insects that continue pulling them down until the submersion stops somewhere around their waist level. This means victims appear to be submerged up to their waist in a living ocean of cockroaches, creating a visual that would haunt anyone for the rest of their natural life. The room extends far beyond 15 meters in width, making it so vast that even using a glow stick to illuminate the area provides nowhere near enough light to reveal the full scope of this insect-filled horror show. From within this cesspit of cockroaches emerges Kyokuho himself, who possesses the ability to manipulate his own body size, from the smallest possible form to the largest thanks to his minimum class abilities, making him an unpredictable and terrifying opponent who can adapt to any situation. Within his domain, Kyohuko can create and control tsunami-style tidal waves of cockroaches that surge towards victims who are already completely surrounded by these insects, ensuring that escape becomes virtually impossible once the attack begins. Traditional weapons prove completely useless against such a massive swarm of tiny insects, since attacking individual cockroaches becomes a hit-or-miss situation that wastes energy while barely making a dent in the overall population. Victims trapped in this ocean of cockroaches find themselves desperately attempting to swim and flail for their lives, but their movements become increasingly restricted as the weight of countless insects bears down on them, making each attempt at escape more futile than the last. Over time, the excessive number of cockroaches completely engulf the victims, with the insects squirming their way in every possible opening in the human body, including the mouth, throat, stomach, and ears, while simultaneously infiltrating through gaps in clothing and armor. This creates a situation where victims experience excruciating pain as their bodies are literally being eaten alive from both the inside and outside simultaneously, while their ability to move or even scream becomes completely compromised by the insects filling their throat and mouth. The cockroaches methodically chew and bite through the flesh of their victims' bodies, creating a feeding frenzy that continues until there's nothing left to consume, making this one of the most horrifying and prolonged deaths imaginable in the entire Great Tomb of Nazarick. Adding to the nightmare landscape of this domain is the windowless underground chapel, a massive structure that spans approximately 100 meters across and remains completely unlit, creating yet another space where darkness and terror reign supreme in this twisted underground kingdom.
Gamer Sups is an energy and nootropic formula designed to be a healthier, cheaper, and more effective beverage over energy drinks for gamers or the modern anime weeb on the go. Its blend of essential vitamins, caffeine, and nootropics provide a consistent boost with no jitters and no crash. It has 0 sugar, less than 1 carb, and less than 1 calorie per serving, so it's keto and diabetic safe. Plus, there's sugar-free options. I personally drink it all the time to be able to grind out these straight to the point and informative videos for you guys, and they'll likely be the only sponsor you'll ever see on this channel. So help the channel stay mostly sponsor-free by clicking the link in our description, picking from the many tasty and uniquely named flavors on the website, and use our code ANIMEX at checkout to save 10% on your order. It would be a huge help for us. Also, pick yourself up a aesthetically interesting waifu cup while you're at it too. They're collectible. But anyway.
4th floor. Deep beneath the surface lies this massive underground lake, tucked away inside a sprawling cavern system that feels both ancient and otherworldly. Back in the day, before Ainz swept in and claimed the entire tomb as his domain, this watery realm had a completely different ruler. A colossal white bat that dominated the darkness with its intimidating presence and supernatural abilities. The creature was perfectly suited for the environment, using the cavern's acoustics and shadowy recesses to maintain absolute control over its territory. But times change, and when Ainz resurrected the tomb's hierarchy, he made a strategic decision to reassign guardianship of this floor to Gargantua, the absolutely massive stone golem that now serves as the official floor guardian for this aquatic domain. This isn't your typical guardian assignment either. Gargantua has made the lake's depths its permanent residence, settling into the bottom of the underground water body like some kind of slumbering titan waiting for orders. The golem's presence transforms the entire floor into something far more menacing than it was even under the bat's reign, since you got this enormous stone construct just sitting there at the bottom, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Most of the time, the floor stays pretty quiet and doesn't see much action in the grand scheme of tomb operations. But there was this one memorable incident during the Lizard Men arc that really showed what Gargantua could do when properly motivated. Ainz decided he needed to make a serious impression on the Lizard Men tribes, so he activated his Stone Guardian and sent it on a mission that was part psychological warfare, part raw demonstration of power. The whole thing was calculated to strike fear into the hearts of these potential enemies, and boy did it work. Gargantua emerged from the lake's depths like some prehistoric monster rising from the primordial waters, its massive form breaking the surface and revealing just how enormous this thing really was. The sheer size of the golem was enough to make anyone think twice about challenging Ainz's forces, but the Stone Guardian wasn't done with its intimidation display. To really drive the point home about the kind of devastating power at Ainz's disposal, Gargantua grabbed this absolutely huge boulder, we're talking about a rock the size of a small building, and hurled it with incredible force into the frozen surface of the lake. The impact was tremendous, sending shockwaves through the ice and creating a spectacle that left no doubt about the golem's raw destructive capabilities. The whole demonstration was perfectly orchestrated to send a clear message about what would happen to anyone foolish enough to oppose the tomb's new master. Once Gargantua had completed its assignment and thoroughly terrified the Lizardman delegation, the massive guardian simply disappeared from the scene, presumably using whatever magical transportation methods allow it to return to its underwater domain at the bottom of the lake, where it continues to wait patiently for the next time Ainz might need its services. 5th floor. This floor is a massive frozen wasteland stretching as far as the eye can see, packed with towering icebergs jutting up from the ground like ancient monuments to some long-forgotten ice age. The whole place feels alive with weather systems that shouldn't exist underground, actual clouds drifting overhead, snow falling constantly, and atmospheric conditions that make you feel like you stepped into some kind of Arctic dimension. Originally, this floor had this brutal area penalty system running so that would slow down anyone trying to move through it while dealing continuous ice-type damage, basically making it a nightmare for any intruders who managed to get this far into Nazarick. But after the teleportation event, Ainz made the practical decision to shut down those defensive measures because maintaining that kind of magical weather control was eating up way too much of their resources. And honestly, with all the other security layers in place, it wasn't really necessary anymore. The inspiration for this entire floor actually came from a pretty unpleasant memory that stuck with Ainz from his past experiences. He remembered this one time when he was crossing a lake and caught sight of this absolutely massive serpent-like creature gliding through the water beneath him. And while it wasn't exactly a fond memory, he ended up channeling that sense of lurking danger and environmental hostility into the design of this floor. One of the coolest features of this place is that every once in a while, when atmospheric conditions align just right, the floor produces these stunning auroras that dance across the artificial sky, creating this ethereal light show that's both beautiful and slightly unsettling in the context of a tomb designed for warfare and defense. The undisputed ruler of this frozen domain is Cocytus, the insect warrior floor guardian who's made his home in this distinctive white dome structure that looks remarkably similar to an overturned wasp's nest, which is probably intentional given his insectoid appearance and nature. 6 massive crystals are positioned around this dome in a perfect circle, and each one serves as both decoration and housing for the Frost Virgins, those level 82 ice elemental beings who serve as Cocytus' personal guard and support staff. Step inside Cocytus' residence, and you'll find everything crafted from ice. The walls gleam with that translucent blue-white shine. The ceiling looks like it was carved from a single massive glacier, and even the furniture maintains that same icy aesthetic, which was definitely an artistic choice rather than a practical one, since there are plenty of other materials that would work just as well. Despite being made entirely of ice, the place functions like any normal home, just scaled up dramatically to accommodate Cocytus' impressive size and his need for space to practice his swordsmanship. He can swing all 4 of his weapons freely anywhere inside without worrying about hitting the ceiling or walls, and there's even a proper conference room where he can host meetings with other floor guardians or receive orders from Ainz. The weather patterns across this floor are intense and deliberately designed for defense. There's this constant blizzard effect that kicks up snow and wind in all directions, creating whiteout conditions that make navigation nearly impossible for anyone who doesn't know the terrain intimately. The snow never stops falling, driven by winds that shift directions unpredictably, which means any footprints or tracks get covered up almost immediately, making it impossible for intruders to retrace their steps or follow anyone else's path. This harsh weather system serves as a natural deterrent and confusion tactic, though under normal circumstances when the floor isn't in high alert mode, the conditions are much more manageable with just light snowfall from the clouds cover overhead instead of the full blizzard treatment. But the 5th floor isn't just Cocytus' personal domain, it also houses one of Nazarick's most important facilities, the Frozen Prison, which was specifically designed by Tabula Smaragdina, one of the guild's most brilliant members who went by the title of Great Alchemist. This prison facility has a really interesting fairy tale aesthetic going on, looking like something straight out of a children's storybook, except everything is covered in a layer of ice that gives it this bleak, foreboding appearance that definitely sends the right message about what happens to enemies of Nazarick. The building is split into 2 distinct levels, each with its own specialized function and guardian to ensure maximum security and efficiency in handling captured prisoners. The above ground section falls under the jurisdiction of Negretto, an area guardian who's confined to her own chamber for reasons that probably have to do with her particular nature and abilities. Getting to Negretto requires navigating this clever disguise system where the entrance to her room is hidden behind what looks like an innocent painting of a mother holding her baby, and visitors are expected to grab a baby doll from the near entrance and present it to Negretto as a way of calming her down before attempting any kind of conversation or interaction. The underground portion of the frozen prison is where things get really serious, overseen by Neuronus Painkill, whose very name should give you a pretty good idea what goes on down there. Neuronus operates out of what's called the Room of Truth, which serves as both her personal office and the main interrogation facility, where she and her team of specialized torturers work on extracting information from freshly captured prisoners. The room is packed with every kind of torture device and interrogation equipment you could imagine, all designed to break down resistance and get prisoners talking through a combination of physical and psychological pressure that's as effective as it is horrifying. 6th floor. The 6th floor stretches up about 200 meters high, and Blue Planet went all out creating this massive artificial paradise complete with a fake sun and sky that actually cycles through day and night just like the real thing. There's no natural weather happening except for some wind effects. This floor takes up a whopping 4 square kilometers, making it the biggest area in all of Nazarick according to the web novel, with a huge lake sitting right in the center. Most of the space is dense jungle rather than forest, with plains only covering about a 20th of the total area. Blue Planet really showed off when designing the artificial sky, throwing in celestial bodies and phenomena like the moon, constellations including Leo, Hercules, Hydra, Cancer, Draco, Orion, Sagittarius, and Scorpio, plus the Milky Way, the Pleiades star cluster, and even meteor showers. This floor breaks the usual pattern by not having not one, but 2 floor guardians, the twins Ora Bellafiora and Mare Bellafiore. Both of them live in the gigantic tree that's positioned close to the amphitheater. The gigantic tree towers over 20 meters high and has been hollowed out to create a living space inside, with 3 floors connected by a spiral staircase that runs up through the core. The first floor houses practical stuff like the kitchen, bathroom, and toilets, while the second floor contains Ora and Mare's personal living quarters, and the third floor has guest rooms plus a balcony. The interior dimensions are fixed and can't be modified, so anyone wanting to get inside through the small entrance needs to have the minimum class or use some size-reducing item. In the web novel version, the Hollow Tree has 2 underground levels and 8 above-ground floors, for a total of 10 levels, and stepping inside feels like entering a simple log house. Buku Buku Chigama provided parasols and a table that she used for conversations with guild members. The amphitheater stands out as one of the most impressive structures on this floor, serving as Nazarick's grand arena with multiple layers of auditorium seating surrounding it. This coliseum turns intruders into the main entertainment, with golems and Ain's Own Gone members watching the brutal battles. Every single invader, except the massive 1,500-man invasion of players and NPCs, met their end in this arena. The oval complex measures 180 meters on its long axis, 150 meters on the short axis, and stands 40 meters tall. The sky display in the Colosseum changes with the time of day, and even shows an actual sun with proper daylight effects. Multiple illumination spells cast throughout the arena bathe everything in white light, making it possible to observe the entire Colosseum as if it were daytime, even when the sky above shows night. The amphitheater includes a VIP lounge, which is a 6-story complex where Ain's Own Gone members would sit back and watch invaders fight for their lives at their leisure. The newly developed village, called Greenhole, also sits on the 6th floor. Before Greenhole was established, this area was just part of the lush forest covering most of the jungle floor. But after Nazarick operatives started taking over the Great Forest of Tob, the space became a new home for various creatures and natives from the New World. Greenhole represents Ain's brainchild and serves as the cornerstone of Project Utopia. Ain's designed the settlement to house both non-human and human races with the goal of forming peaceful relationships between them. Penison Polperlia became the first inhabitant of this repurposed area and helped facilitate relationships between other plant-type monsters, eventually becoming an influential figure among the immigrants. With backing from Ora and Mare, the Dryad appointed herself as the village chieftain. The village contains about 10 log houses built for the immigrated lizardmen, with farming fields to the right and an orchard several times larger than the fields to the left. A massive forest surrounds the entire village, and when viewed from above, the settlement area looks like a giant hole carved into the greenery, which explains the name Greenhole. Even though cutting down trees and digging out roots typically leave the ground uneven and messy, this village maintains a strangely perfect, organized, and clean appearance thanks to Mare's magic. The settlement lies within the newly expanded Field of Flowers, positioned between 2 separate areas designated for non-intelligent and intelligent plant-type monsters. Albedo and most of the other floor guardians believe this village serves as a way to deceive humans into thinking that Nazarick can actually coexist peacefully with the human realm. The immigrated dryads and treants report that Mare's magic makes the soil in the area more enriching and fertile than was actually necessary. Because of Greenhole's relative success, Ainz wants to use this village as his template for creating a true utopia throughout his kingdom. The Field of Flowers, also located on the 6th floor, existed back during the original Ain's Own Gone days. Initially, there were plans to fill this field with traps targeting invaders who made it to the 6th floor. Having a field of flowers that was just a field of flowers would seem suspicious. The thinking was that invaders would get cautious and burn the whole place down. So there were discussions about planting flowers that could respond to fire and release deadly or paralyzing poison. That plan got scrapped after strong opposition from the 3 female guild members, leaving the area unchanged. Tabula Smaragdina still wanted to incorporate some kind of trap using the field's scenery to distract intruders while wild boars charged at them, but Buku Buku Chigama shot down this idea too because she considered the area special. She wanted to use the place for photo shoots in a safe environment since the world outside the dungeon was hostile to heteromorphs. After transitioning to the new world, the 6th floor underwent several changes ordered by Ainz. Some modifications involved building Greenhole. The Field of Flowers, which already existed, got expanded to accommodate self-sustaining species like plant-type monsters. Since plant-type monsters gathered nutrients directly from soil for sustenance, they seemed like the perfect candidate for this arrangement. To prevent soil depletion around the area, Mari uses his magic to restore it. Aura and Mari would welcome more foreign plant-type monsters, which involved demonstrating the twins and their summon's combat abilities. The massive power difference would force the monsters to submit and accept relocation to the Field of Flowers. No area guardian was assigned to oversee the location, leaving it under the direct control of both Aura and Mari. For the most part, the plants within the Field of Flowers lived however they wanted with very few restrictions. The place became home to blooming flowers in every color imaginable. At the center of the field sits Earth Recover, which helps restore nutrients in the soil. The land, with help from its inhabitants, can transform regular produce like carrots into giant versions, though this process takes a toll on the soil. While the land won't turn into a desert without using magic to recover nutrients, it would need at least 1 year of rest afterward. The area houses various plant-type monsters that Aura and Mari brought from outside Nazarick, including species like Alrunes, tree ants, and dryads. Among the Field of Flower inhabitants are individuals who act as representatives for everyone else, plus a spear needle that lounges around, acting as the warden and monitoring the area. Inhabitants from the Field of Flowers sometimes helps with harvesting crops from Greenhole for Nazarick's use. Due to the many miraculous things Mari and his woodland dragons accomplish, many of the plant monsters view the Dark Elf almost like a god, and even those who don't see him that way still revere the Floor Guardian as an incredibly skilled practitioner of druidic arts. Another fascinating spot on this floor is the Trail of the Fae, which has teleportation abilities. After saving the Dark Elf village, Aura mentioned that the Trail of the Fae in Nazarick to the villagers and the Council of Elders. A few of the Dark Elves recognized the term and were surprised since they thought that the trail was just a legend. Aura insisted it really exists, but didn't provide details, claiming she couldn't discuss it with those who weren't chosen by the Fae. Later, while eavesdropping on the Elders, Ainz discovered that the Dark Elves had used something also called the Trail of the Fae in the past to travel from the north of their current forest location. However, as far as the Overlord knew, the Trail of the Fae inside Nazarick couldn't teleport people over such vast distances, so he figured the Dark Elves were either mistaking it for something else, or there was a completely different Trail of the Fae altogether. According to the Elder's description, using the Trail of Fae required something called the Fae's Blessing, a trait that most Dark Elves had lost over the years. The Elders remained doubtful about whether Aura actually used the trail to reach the Great Sea of Trees, and hoped her uncle would be able to clarify things. Other notable locations scattered throughout this floor include the huge lake positioned in the middle of the floor, Moon's Road, overgrown ruins, poisonous pits, twisted trees, mangrove forests, bottomless swamps, and various types of woodlands. 7th floor. The 7th floor is basically what you'd picture when someone says hell, with crimson lava flowing like rivers throughout the entire level, and countless bubbles forming in these molten currents that burst when they reach the surface. The place doesn't like anything living and fits the definition of a hell world. Back before Ainz conquered the tomb, this floor's boss was a lightning-breathing dragon, but now Demiurge runs things as the Floor Guardian. The entire 7th floor is a hellish landscape where big volcanoes keep spewing toxic fumes made up of superheated gases and vaporized rock that rises up until it condenses and forms magma droplets that rain down, creating pools, rivers, and lakes that connect with streams of molten rock that keep erupting from the dry, burned ashen ground. A river, called the River of Lava, cuts right through the 7th floor, carrying crimson molten rock. Living in this river is the area guardian Gurren, which is basically a huge abyssal hellish slime that waits for enemies to come near the stream before attacking them. There used to be a fire elemental damage field effect active here that would hurt intruders, but since that's been temporarily suspended, the area just feels really hot instead of dealing damage. Even with this change though, this isn't a place where living beings can easily survive. The hot air will strip throats and skin of moisture in seconds. Even fresh sweat on someone's body will instantly turn into steam, causing fatigue to build up over time. This hostile environment really lives up to being a hell world that doesn't want anything alive around. Despite these tough conditions, many creatures that are immune to fire actually live here as residents of the Great Tomb of Nazarick. The floor has various monsters, including mephits and fire-immune undead creatures that have made this burning place their home. Past all these enemies and the hellish environment, there's a Greek-looking temple sitting on a coast made of molten rock, positioned on top of mountainous terrain. The blazing temple is where Demiurge lives, and has columns scattered around like they got smashed into each other, along with statues of various gods that have been messed up and broken. The ceiling has been broken down with big pieces stuck in the ground, giving the impression that demons kicked the gods out of heaven. Right in the center of this temple, surrounded by all the mess and destruction, there's a white throne where the guardian of the 7th floor sits to watch over his domain. According to Demiurge, the place was designed and created just for him by his creator, Albert Alain Otto, so it has everything he needs to do his job as floor guardian. Even though Demiurge's domain looks like ruins to everyone else, he thinks this destroyed temple shows his creator's appreciation and love for him, making it really important to him. 8th floor. The 8th floor serves as Nazarick's absolute final defense line, watched over by the floor guardian victim along with the most incredibly powerful NPCs collectively known as the 8th floor hierarchy. These beings had one job and one job only, stopping any invaders from getting past the 8th floor no matter what. The blazing temple sits near the gate that allows intruders to actually enter the 8th floor where the hierarchy hangs out, and they're still considered Nazarick's ultimate defense force even after being transported into the new world. Back in the day, they successfully shut down the largest invasion that ever happened throughout Idrisil's entire history, and it was quite the spectacle. Every single human who watched a recorded movie of what went down with those 1,500 invaders on the 8th floor screamed that what they were seeing was absolutely impossible. More than half of those invaders who got taken out by the 8th floor hierarchy were already completely exhausted by the time they managed to drag themselves to that floor, having fought through 7 previous levels of hell just to get there. Things got so intense that official mail got flooded with questions from other players who weren't even part of the invasion, asking whether the 8th floor setup should be classified as illegal construction because it seemed way too overpowered. This floor stands as the only location in all of Nazarick that the other floor guardians, except for Victim, know practically nothing about, especially when it comes to those mysterious residents who make up the 8th floor hierarchy. In the web novel, the floor guardians actually assumed that the 8th floor hierarchy was also designed to destroy them if they ever decided to rebel against Ainz, which adds another layer of paranoia to the whole setup. If anyone manages to capture the 8th floor, Ainz's chance of victory dropped to almost nothing. Momonga pointed out that the reason there were no pop monsters placed on the 9th floor in the first place was simply because if any intruders could somehow overcome the 8th floor hierarchy, who are the most powerful beings in the entire tomb, then Ainz's chance of winning would already be pretty much non-existent from that point forward. Maruyama even mentioned that the fall of Ainz on Gon would be inevitable if that scenario ever played out. This floor is so dangerous that the NPCs of Nazarick aren't allowed to set foot on it, with Ainz strictly forbidding them from entering the 8th floor under any circumstances. The floor's most notable area is the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary, which also happens to be the home of the area guardian Aurelie Omega. 2 powerful guardians called Ukonomitama and Utoshi keep watch over this particular area, making sure nothing unwelcome gets through. Currently, the staff of Ainz on Gon, one of the most important items in the guild's possession, has been left under Aurelie Omega's care in the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary, where she's been looking after it and protecting it ever since it was placed in her custody. The investment in this floor was massive, with half of either Momonga's personal funding or the entire guild's funding being poured into making the 8th floor as formidable as possible, which really shows just how crucial this level is to Nazarick's overall defense strategy. 9th floor. The 9th floor serves as the living quarters for guild members and NPCs, while also housing all sorts of facilities that make this place feel almost like a real-world city. This floor includes imitations of large communal baths, cafeterias, beauty salons, clothing stores, grocery stores, fitness salons, nail salons, and tons of other facility rooms that were originally just decorative features in Idrisil, but became fully functional after the base arrived in the new world. According to Ainz, this floor has conditions most similar to the real world compared to any other floor in Nazarick. The Round Table Room functions as the conference chamber, where the 41 supreme beings would gather for important discussions and decision-making sessions. There's also a bar that's managed by the sous chef, providing a relaxed atmosphere for residents to unwind and socialize over drinks. Spa Resort Nazarick stands out as one of the most impressive facilities, being largely public with a total of 17 different baths, offering 9 distinct types for both genders, all organized into 12 separate zones that each provide unique experiences. These zones include a large jungle bath that makes you feel like you're bathing in a tropical rainforest, a traditional-looking Roman bath with classic architecture and styling, a yuzu bath with actual yuzus floating on the surface for aromatherapy, a carbonated bath that fizzles and bubbles around your body, a relaxing jacuzzi with jets and warm water circulation, an electric bath with low current that provides mild electrification to stimulate the body, a cold bath with charcoals floating on the surface, the Cherenkov pool that glows with an eerie blue light, a mixed open-air bath featuring artificial scenery to stimulate outdoor hot springs, a traditional sauna for heat therapy, a bedrock bath that uses heated stones, and a comfortable lounge area for resting between sessions. The staff canteen provides a whitewashed dining area where all the maids of Nazarick gather together for their meals and social time. The manicure salon offers professional nail treatment services for anyone wanting to keep their hands looking perfect. The theater serves as an entertainment venue where Nazarick conducts plays and various performances for the residents' enjoyment. A Japanese-style room features traditional tatami flooring and authentic Japanese design elements for those who appreciate classic Eastern aesthetics. Maid Cafe Pleiades operate as a coffee shop that was created and is entirely staffed by the Pleiades battle maids, offering both beverages and a unique experience of being served by some of Nazarick's most capable servants. The dojo provides a dedicated hall for martial arts practice where residents can train and maintain their combat skills. Water Park Nazarick creates a full water park theme area complete with slides, pools, and aquatic attractions for recreational fun. The courthouse serves as a proper legal facility for delivering judicial rulings and handling any disputes that might arise within Nazarick. A panic room, designed by Garnett, functions as an emergency safe room equipped with various traps and gimmicks to protect important individuals during crisis situations. The funeral home maintains the solemn atmosphere of a funeral parlor that blends both Japanese and Western styles for any memorial service that might be needed. Albedo's harem room doubles as both a dressing room in her personal quarters and her main workshop where she spends times crafting Ainz plushies and pillows as expressions of her devotion. Guest rooms are specifically reserved for visitors and guests from outside of Nazarick who need accommodation during their stays. The classroom represents a venerable education space created by the Supreme Beings to serve as a proper classroom for learning and instruction. Garnet designed the ninja mansion specifically for Nishiki and Rai, creating an authentic ninja-themed environment. The quiz room gets used for trivia tournaments and intellectual competitions among residents. Yamaiko Shrine exists as a Shinto shrine that the Supreme Beings created as a gag, though it maintains all the proper religious elements and atmosphere. Renner's personal quarters house the former third princess of the now fallen Riastais kingdom, who successfully joined the Sorcerer Kingdom after betraying her kingdom and receiving her own private room within the 9th floor, where she lives together with her beloved Climb. Casino Resort Nazarick operates as a full gambling facility featuring slot machines, card tables, roulette wheels, and other games of chance for entertainment. Yoza Shitsu serves as a contemporary Japanese room that functions primarily as a game room where residents can enjoy various recreational activities. Shizai Kaiken used to exist as an apology press conference room that formerly served as a testing area for Tabula's experiments and projects. Photo Studio Tabula was specifically built by Tabula as a dedicated workspace for Buku Buku Chigama to pursue her photography hobby, complete with professional lighting and equipment. The beauty parlor operates as a full-service hairdressing store that is actually run by a Jack the Ripper summon, providing professional hair care and styling services to Nazarick's residents who want to maintain their appearance. 10th floor. The 10th floor contains the throne that the Guild Master Momonga sits on, which happens to be a world item called the Throne of Kings, making it one of the most important and powerful artifacts in all of Nazarick. Albedo, who leads all the NPCs in Nazarick, serves as the floor guardian of this crucial level. Right after the entrance to the 10th floor sits the Room of Pleiades 6 Stars, where the combat maid squad of the Great Tomb lives and operates from. These maids originally only served as Nazarick's last line of defense during the Idrisil days, but since the tomb got transported to the New World, Ainz has assigned them tons of additional tasks that keeps them busy throughout Nazarick and beyond. Moving deeper into the floor, you'll find Limit Jeton, a hall that stands just before the entrance of the throne room and serves as one of the final defensive positions of the entire dungeon. The room itself was never actually completed because it's missing 5 golems that were supposed to be placed in 72 niches throughout the hall. This happened because the creator of these golems, a guild member named Lucifer, got bored with the project and abandoned it to pursue what he thought was a more amusing project of creating a golem specifically designed to pull pranks on his fellow guildmates. The work on Limigeton was supposed to be a collaborative effort between Lucifer and Obert Elaine Odla, with the latter having created a massive door leading to the throne room. At the end of the hall stand a pair of giant doors that are absolutely majestic, rising over 5 meters in height and covered in incredibly intricate carvings that showcase the guild's attention to detail. The left side of the door was shaped to look like a beautiful goddess, while the right side was designed to resemble a cruel demon, and both were so realistic in their design that even from across the room, you feel like they might actually attack you. The throne room itself was designed by the entire Ain's Own Gone guild to serve as the ultimate welcome area for any invaders who somehow managed to penetrate all the previous defenses of the dungeon. This is where all the guild members would assemble for what would be the final showdown against any intruder, brave or stupid enough to make it this far. The Overseer Guardian, Albedo, was the only NPC allowed to be stationed in this room, acting as the overall commander to all the floor guardians throughout Nazarick. Unfortunately, no players ever actually reached the throne room during Idrisil's time, not even the Union of 8 guilds when they launched their massive invasion of Nazarick, which made this incredible chamber little more than expensive decoration. The throne room lies in the absolute deepest reaches of the infamous dungeon, with Limigeton standing between it and the rest of Nazarick as the final defensive barrier protecting the heart of the entire tomb. The room itself represents an exquisite piece of architectural work, featuring a wide, high space that's big enough to accommodate several hundred people comfortably, with a soaring ceiling and surrounding walls that are predominantly white with golden decorations, serving as highlight throughout. Hanging from the ceiling are numerous chandeliers made of precious stones in all colors of the rainbow, creating a fantastic dreamlike radiance that bathes the entire room in magical light. Numerous flags, emblazoned with different symbols, each representing one of the supreme beings, hang from flagpoles that are embedded directly into the walls, creating a gallery of guild member recognition. In the center of this room that's tinted in gold and silver, there's a flight of stairs that rises about 10 steps high, leading up to the most important feature of the entire floor. Sitting atop these stairs is a gigantic throne that was carved out of a single piece of crystal, with a back that's high enough to actually touch the ceiling above it, making it an imposing sight for anyone who enters. A huge red banner hangs down from behind the throne, proudly displaying the symbol of the guild for all to see. In the throne room, there's a specific hierarchy system, where lower-level servants are typically placed near the rear end of any assembly, without exception, and the treatment they received is directly proportional to their level within Nazarick's structure. However, if a specific group of 100 undead were personally created by Ainz himself, their status would be completely different from the normal hierarchy. From this room, various dungeon systems throughout Nazarick can be accessed by the Guildmaster, making it not just a ceremonial space, but also a functional command center. Ashurbanipal serves as the Great Library of Nazarick, where the tomb's incredible wealth of knowledge gets stored and organized. This library functions as the residence of Titus Aeneas Secundus, who holds the position of Chief Librarian of Nazarick and oversees all the books and information contained within. This is where Ainz stored book-shaped items along with regular books, creating a massive collection of written knowledge. Most of the books in the Great Tomb's library are actually summoning books that contain data for creating various monsters and creatures. In reality, there's no need to acquire so many books because even using a single resource available from Nazarick, you couldn't summon even a tenth of the number of monsters that the books contain data for. Since monster data wasn't very expensive to obtain in Idrisil, the guild members started making massive numbers of duplicates without much thought to the cost. The true reason for gathering so many books was actually to hide important magic items by blending them among ordinary ones, making it impossible for anyone other than guild members or trusted servants to find anything valuable. Though the library contains data on various types of monsters, it doesn't have the information on every single type of monster that existed in Idrisil. And some monster data has limited practical use. For example, Nazarick had already used up their entire supply of data for creating Hanzos, and the library doesn't contain any data for making 8-edge assassins either. Creating higher-tiered monsters requires spending large sums of gold, making it an expensive process that needs to be managed carefully. While the Hanzo data supply is exhausted, the library still contains data for other ninja-type monsters that can be summoned instead. The wide front door of the library has 2 high-class golems standing guard, ensuring that only authorized personnel can enter this important repository of knowledge. The library itself is incredibly well maintained, displaying lots of art pieces and decorations covering every corner, making it resemble something similar to an art museum rather than a place to store books. Even the ceiling features beautiful paintings that add to the overall aesthetic appeal of the space. There's also a second floor in the library that has lots of glass shelves placed in an orderly fashion throughout the space. There are so many shelves arranged in such a complex pattern that you can't see all of them in a single glance. The library also includes several smaller rooms that were designed for specialized uses, plus individual rooms for the staff members who work there. There are 3 major sections in the library that serve different purposes: the Room of Logic, the Room of Wisdom, and the Room of Magic, each focusing on different types of knowledge and magical theory. There's also a crafting room where magic scrolls get produced on a regular basis, containing a workshop with countless materials of great quality and quantity that are used specifically for manufacturing magic scrolls and other written magical items. Treasury. The Treasury serves as the ultimate treasure vault of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, and this place gets spatially isolated from all other areas, which means you absolutely need a Ring of Ain's Own Gone just to enter the Treasury in the first place. During Ain's Own Gone's golden years, when they operated as a PK guild at the peak of their power, the guild managed to amass a truly vast fortune of gold and treasure from all of their conquests and adventures throughout Yggdrasil. All of this incredible wealth eventually got stored within the Treasury for safekeeping, with the design and construction being handled by 2 guild members named Genjiro and Tabula Smaragdina. Pandora's actor was designated as the area guardian responsible for overseeing the entire Treasury operation. Treasures of importance get organized into different categories that include armors, weapons, jewelry, auxiliary tools, consumables, manufacturing goods, and tons of other valuable items, making them easily accessible to guild members when needed. Within the Treasury, you'll also find the Nazarick Maintenance Room and Data Crystal Storage Room, both of which are extremely important locations for the tomb's overall operation. The entrance to the Treasury begins at the Treasure Hall, which is basically a massive gallery that has limitless ceiling and gets filled with literal mountains of treasure piled up everywhere you look. While the enormous quantities of gold and luxurious items scattered throughout this hall might appear absolutely staggering to most people, the items placed here are actually considered to be of relatively little value compared to the incredible treasures that are locked away further in the deeper vaults. Flying becomes effectively the only practical way to cross these mountains of gold and make your way towards the gate that leads to the deeper recesses of the Treasury. An unknown item called the Blood of Jormungandr produces a constant poison cloud that renders the air in the Treasury highly toxic, serving as a perfect deterrent to prevent thieves from trespassing on this sacred ground. If someone doesn't possess any abilities or tools capable of countering these deadly toxins, they would drop dead within just 3 steps of entering the area. On the other side of the chamber, there's a recess built into a wall that's shaped like a door, but actually appears to be a bottomless pit when you look at it. This door can only be opened by using a predetermined password that only authorized personnel would know, though someone with high-level magic or special skills from the rogue class might be able to force their way through if they were determined enough. Behind the door of the Treasury lies a 100-meter-long tunnel that leads deeper into the vault system. This tunnel is an incredibly orderly place that feels similar to walking through a museum, with its dimly lit interior stretching inward for quite a distance. The ceiling rises about 5 meters high, clearly not having been designed with humans in mind, while the hallway spans about 10 meters from one wall to the other. The ground consists of tightly fitting shiny black stone blocks that give off the appearance of being one single long stone slab running the entire length of the tunnel. Neat rows of countless weapons get arrayed along the walls in an impressive display that would make any collector jealous. These types of weapons contained in this armory are almost uncountable, including broadswords, greatswords, estocks, scimitars, knives, short swords, sword breakers, axes, one-handed bludgeons, javelins, bows, crossbows, and tons of other conventional weapons. In addition to these standard weapons, there are a great number of weapons that are so unconventional that calling them weapons might be stretching the definition, including items that couldn't possibly be sheathed and others that were more decorative than actually useful, which included the majority of the collection. Almost none of these weapons were made with anything as ordinary as steel, instead featuring exotic materials and magical properties. Examples of these incredible weapons include a sword with a blade made of pure blue crystal, a pristine white sword with intricate gold inlays and engravings covering its surface, a black sword with mysterious purple characters running along its body, and even a bow that seems to have been strung with pure light instead of traditional materials. There are also a large number of dangerous-looking weapons scattered throughout the collection, such as a massive two-handed axe with a blade that constantly drips fresh blood, a gigantic mace with tormented faces that appear and vanish on its black metal surface, a lance that resembles human hands clasping each other in an eerie grip, a sword whose blade flickers and dances like an actual flame, and even a sword whose blade looks like a whip and wriggles around like a living centipede. Most of these weapons possess magical properties, but the exact effects of each individual item remains a complete mystery, even to those who have access to the Treasury. At the end of the Armory Tunnel, there's a location designed specifically to receive guests who make it this far into the Treasury. This tomb-like rectangular room gets set up with just a table and sofa positioned in the middle of the otherwise empty space, creating a simple but functional meeting area. Other passages become visible to the left and right of this room, similar to a path that leads from the armory, suggesting that the Treasury system extends much further than what you can see from this single location. The height of this room also reaches about 5 meters, but the dim interior extends further inward, with a large niche set into the wall that leads directly to the mausoleum. When each member of Ain's Own Gon began to quietly retire from Yggdrasil, one by one, every single one of them gave up possession of their personal items and weapons to Momonga, essentially treating their valuable gear as throwaway items since they were leaving the game forever. Momonga built the mausoleum specifically to honor those departed guild members, and it acts as a special shrine dedicated to preserving their memory and legacy. While all of the guild members' personal equipment gets stored in the mausoleum, the great golden stone statues, known as avatara, actually equip those items and display them in the likeness of their former owners, as a way to honor their contributions to the guild. These avatars function as golems who act as the guardians of the guild members' relics they're equipped with, ensuring that these precious items remain protected from any unauthorized access. Additionally, the mausoleum has a special defense mechanism that will only activate if someone wearing a ring of Ain's Own Gon enters its range or steps onto its premises. When this happens, the golems will immediately awaken and attack the ring bearer, using the very same weapons that were formerly possessed and wielded by original guild members of Ain's Own Gon. This means that anyone wanting to enter the mausoleum must do so without wearing a ring of Ain's Own Gon in order to bypass the activation of this final defense mechanism. Past the mausoleum is where Pandora's actor makes his home and oversees the entire Treasury operation from his personal quarters.